Welcome to the My Brain Mechanic podcast. In the first episode, we talked about the 5 internal dysfunctions that are happening with a TBI patient. So today we want to focus on neuroinflammation and microglial activation, transcriptomic reprogramming, and that's a fancy word for the brain's immune system, the microglia, after a TBI never fully reset. In fact, they're not just active, they're hypersensitive for not just months, but years. But that is not the sole source of neuroinflammation. We have other things like mitogen activated protein kinase, which causes cell death neuroinflammation, NLRP3, cell death neuroinflammation, breakdown of the blood-brain barrier. Then we've got a breach to the blood-brain barrier, which can cause the body's immune system as well as antigens that cause more neuroinflammation. And then when we get to the gut-brain axis, again, even more inflammation being caused. So a TBI patient is stuck with a lot of neuroinflammation. Plus, our brain is the most susceptible of any part of our body to oxidative stress, and we're living in a much more toxic environment. So, why would we avoid or not look at drugs in this case? Well, they use corticosteroids and they worsen TB outcomes in the crash trial and are no longer used. And anti-inflammatories cause gastric bleeding, um, which will exacerbate the condition. They're really not to be used long term because of the gastric bleeding. Once you reseal the blood-brain barrier, some of them have trouble crossing it. And we also have different cytokines, different inflammatory signaling markers that need to be addressed, and they don't always address all of those. So what do we have at our disposal? And I'm sometimes hesitant to mention compounds because I want to be very clear that a TBI is a multifactorial condition. So if I just mentioned what works in neuroinflammation, um, that that's not the answer because we still need to address all the other things, and I'm just mentioning a few things. But addressing neuroinflammation is so key. And if you go back to 2018, the head of the Department of Psychiatry, Dr. Rayson, said neuroinflammation was the sine qua non of all mental illness, all neurologic conditions, far be it from any subpopulation or condition from schizophrenia to obsessive compulsive disorder. Neuroinflammation was at its core. And again, a TBI has a tremendous amount. New Science Direct just months ago came out with an article saying that psychiatric medicine hasn't changed much since the 60s. Could blocking the effects of inflammation on the brain be the next step change we need? Absolutely. And we have answers. Astaxanthin, which makes real salmon, wild caught salmon. It's pink color and gives lobster and shrimp crustaceans that pinkish reddish color. It is 6,000 times more potent than vitamin C. It shifts the brain's immune system from M1 pro-inflammatory to M2 anti-inflammatory. It has been shown to increase the production of pyramidal neurons. Ergothioneine is a very powerful antioxidant, reduces inflammation, and has this very unique OCTN1 transporter and almost works like a stem cell where it literally will go to the areas of injury and start working on them, where a drug or another supplement will disperse throughout the brain. And again, we need substances that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So I always also look for synergies. So glutathione and ergothioneine both come from mushrooms, and when they're combined, they become even that much more powerful. Astaxanthin, when combined with DHA, becomes that much more powerful and effective. And the human brain is 60% fat, 75 to 80% of it is DHA. This is finding the things like when we talked about, and why I call it my brain mechanic, is getting the parts back into the damaged car, the original body parts. And sometimes we need to find those, because getting them from a diet is becoming increasingly tougher because of, our farming and food and processing and other things. But these natural compounds with the right companies can do so much. So keep in mind that although I'm saying the brain's immune system is active and hypersensitive for years, and there are all these causes of neuroinflammation, there are answers out there. And this is why we need to combine Western and functional medicine, because there are drugs that are absolutely needed. There are therapies out there that are absolutely needed. There are different devices that really can do a lot for a TBI patient, but the missing key is addressing these internal dysfunctions with functional medicine. So in the next video, we're going to look at the breach to the blood-brain barrier and what that causes, and how it increases more neuroinflammation. So I'll look for you in the next video.